we all warned about Project 2025. We went through, we did an episode on it. It is very clear that Russell Vought is 1,000% committed to his mission. And whether people know it or not, this is a person. Elon Musk is being sidelined. But all the reporting that I have seen, the man behind the curtain all the while is still Russell Vought. And so this person who is little known, little advertised, little talked about, is deeply cinched in the federal, in knowledge about the federal system. He worked for a U.S. senator. He's been a policy director. He's worked in the nuanced details of budgeting of the federal government, which is what frightens me the most about his position within this administration and the power that he's ascended to, because he's exactly the type of person who knows how to bring it all down, to bring it all. And if you're committed to that end and you spent the time studying and understanding and knowing how to do it, it ought to frighten and shake all of us to the core to know that there is that kind of a fox in the hen house. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by the hen house, I mean the hen house of democracy, the room of the Constitution, the underbelly of statutes and laws that then govern this democracy. This is a person who understands that hook, letter, verse. And so now we read in Project 2025 about the loyalty owed to the Trump administration, and they want federal government employees to be mostly fidel to him and not to the Constitution. And so what is about to happen based off of this executive order that the president signed in April that has now advanced forward and it is expected to be part of a compromise on the budget that the House Speaker is going to lead, is it will transform what are 50,000 currently civil service positions. These are people who get hired into the government. They work for a respective part of the government, and their fidelity ultimately is to the Constitution, to the laws of this country, to enact what is passed through the Congress and signed by the president. Well, they want to change those positions so that they're no longer sort of equal opportunity positions for anyone who is qualified to apply and get hired. Two, you must be loyal to Donald Trump, or the president, if you will, and your job is to enact the agenda of the president without regard to any of those other factors. That's problematic because it's those other factors that make what the president does either legal or illegal. Mm-hmm. And if you as a person are able to unilaterally decide that all we do is follow the edicts of the president without regard to the law, what's right, to the codes and statutes of the country, you, in my opinion, are no longer civilly servant to the people. You're civilly servant to a man. You are servant to an individual. Well, these 50,000 positions that are about to be transitioned is just the start of where they ultimately want to go with the over 2 million federal employees, which is to make them, again, wholly loyal to the individual occupant of the White House, whereas our democracy has been built on and has stood, not perfectly, because I got my critiques, but has stood largely on civil servants who follow the law, the Constitution, and will absolutely disobey an unlawful order. And if we're now changing that to you obey whatever the order is from the commander-in-chief, from the president of the United States, without regard to the other stuff, we are well then on the way to fascism, because to a system of democracy that doesn't look anything like democracy at all, but more like that of a king, a dictator, or a tyrant.
Yeah, literally everything you're saying, because we've obviously heard about this before he was actually even elected. And then when he took over, there were employees, government employees, saying that they were asked about their fealty
loyalty
to Donald Trump. And I just wonder what exactly is that litmus test. And this is just something that we've not seen before. And I think people are so tuned out to the extent because we cannot fathom losing right. Yeah. You know, like people have we've never been confronted with the concept of losing rights. And if you are building an army, essentially, if you are supplanting everybody within the federal government to be these loyalists, I mean, that is what you have in Russia with Putin. That's what you have in Turkey with Erdogan. That's what you have even in China with Xi. That's what you have in the other dictator I can't think of.
I mean, there's Cuba. We've got it also where we are now exporting American citizens to prisons.
El Salvador.
In countries.
It was Bukele.
Exactly. Where you got a strongman figure. Everybody's loyal to the strongman figure. And go, lo and behold, there is zero accountability. And then people start to regret the kind of system that then takes hold. Again, all of these people were elected as populists first.
Yeah. Erdogan. That's what I was trying to say. Erdogan in Turkey. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but they were the voice of the people. And then they got there and it became very clear they're the voice for themselves.
Yeah. Is that legal? Like, I don't know that the courts are going to hold, so I don't know what a law is at this point. But is it legal to create 50,000 positions where you have to be loyal to not even the executive branch, but the president himself? And if not, where does it go? Like, who is the person that's going to stand between Donald Trump and his building essentially an army, a workforce of loyal federal employees?
Tiffany is the right question. And unfortunately, the people who would normally be the stopgap, the Congress, they've already shown themselves to be head over heels.
Feckless.
You know, exactly. Exactly.
That's pretty frightening when you think about it. And it kind of is the point that I was making around a lot of this. We are exporting a lot of populism. And it kind of dovetails into, Angela, what you wanted to talk about with the sit-ins, because I do feel like Congress has been pretty feckless at this point, but curious your thoughts, because it's around the topic you want to talk about.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to pull sound, but there's some really good sound from this past weekend. Members of Congress who, including Cory Booker, who a lot of folks were so proud of for standing on the Senate floor for more than 24 hours, breaking Strom Thurmond's record. He was a part of what they were calling, some were calling a sit-in, some were calling a teach-in, this past weekend on Sunday. And so they sat on the steps, and I'm not going to lie to y'all, the image that I had in my mind was Sesame Street. I don't know why I was giving Sesame Street vibes, but it was giving Sesame Street vibes.
They were teaching.
Yeah, maybe. But it felt a lot softer than his initial approach. But the circumstances have gotten so much more severe. There are a lot of people who come out of traditional movement work that really liked what they did. And I'm not saying I didn't. And the worst part is I hate to be a person that criticizes a thing and then I don't have the alternative. So I don't know what the alternative is. I don't know that it's another press conference. I don't know that it's going on more shows. And it may be a combination of all of these things. I think that what they're really wrestling with, which is something we wrestle with every week too, is cutting through. Yeah. How do you cut through? Why are you talking about stuff that nobody understands, or your approach is one that nobody appreciates, or, you know, very few people do, or you're in that same echo chamber talking to the same people you always talk to? What are you going to do to stretch yourself out of your comfort zone? Now, to be fair, they might have been in comfortable clothes, but I think they stretched themselves out of their comfort zone. Their safe spaces behind a podium at a press conference, on the House floor, you know, debating a bill, in a committee room, right, in a markup or a hearing, asking questions to the other side or to a witness. So I know they're stretching, but I'm just wondering tactically if it was the right thing. I really don't have an answer. I have my initial impression, and I am relentless right now about going to find the one. I don't know who the one is, but I feel like I'll know them when I see them, to the point of losing my voice. It is the person that does not ordinarily come to the things that we go to. It is the person that would find some of what we are striving to do uncomfortable. It is the person that is like, why are you doing that? Like, who cares? That person, how do we reach them? Because that is the person that won this last election.
Maybe.
They won this last election.
Maybe, because I actually think that I stay at home.
That's who I'm talking about.
Okay.
The apathy won, like numerically, apathy won the election.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.